just not possible with Flash, right? So this workshop, and there is a video on YouTube of me kind of talking through my initial ideas and what's involved with this. But yeah, the workshop itself, what we're going to be doing is doing five setups on the day. As you saw there, like the first event here on October 25th is sold out. I have opened up a second date here on November 1st. I think we're just over half full on that already, which is great. The process on the day is going to be five setups. This is going to be the first one, and again, this is really going to be harnessing those RGB lights, where we are going to be really just playing around with these beautifully unique soft colors that can kind of harmonize really well together, as opposed to gels, which are kind of fairly aggressive, right? You've just got this one gel, there's no nuance in that. It's like, oh, if I could just take a little bit of saturation off that, or if I could just add a little bit of blue so that it matches more with this, cyan, so the pinks and the cyans like kind of harmonize. With gels, you can't really do that. So with RGBs, you can really start to get into the nuance of color. And again, like, look at these beautiful soft washes of color that you're able to achieve. That is very tricky to do with Flash, right? So these kind of colorscapes that I mentioned before opens up a lot of options, right? So setup one, very, very cool. And then moving on to the second setup, which is going to be us playing with some long exposure in Flash. And again, RGBs, great for long exposure, ambient lighting, great for film and video, but we'll be shooting long exposure images just to get this sense of movement here. And then I'll be using the Rotolight LEDs that have the ability to flash via the camera trigger. So we're able to get this nice crisp image of the model being frozen in time, and then we're just adding this ambient light with the other LEDs to kind of get this sense of movement, just a little bit more energy in the shot, right? And this kind of model echo, as I call it. So again, one of my favorite techniques to use, that flash and long exposure, but it's just become even easier with LEDs. The third setup we're going to look at is something that is extremely exciting, and one that I think is completely slept on at the moment, and has got so much scope. I've done maybe 4 or 5 shoots using this technique. I've had clients asking for it now as well, which is awesome. And every time I do it, you kind of look at new ways that you can kind of create this effect, because again, as you probably noticed, we're kind of mixing this ambient light with flash and able to create these very beautiful energized images. So looking forward to covering that one. And then for the last couple of setups, we'll be playing around with these tubes, and these tubes are a ton of fun. And the reason I say that is because typically with normal flash lighting, what we're doing is we are setting up a light exactly where it's going to be, and we're like, okay, move your chin a little bit, something like that. With these LED tubes that I'm using, that has like a 320 degree coverage. Like normally with the LED tubes that you buy, you have 180 degrees, right? So imagine a circle cut in half. This side of the circle is got light coming out of it, and this side of the circle is pure black. So these tubes enable 320 degrees, so it's like a tiny thin strip where it's not producing light, but it enables us to have light in the shot, so both lighting her, and we can see the light as well without it being hidden by the black casing. But this was kind of interesting. I delivered this workshop to somebody a couple of weeks ago, 2 weekends ago now, something like that. And you set this up, and you find yourself kind of walking around the set. Very, very cool, because there's so many different shots to be had once you start playing with this. This is not something that you just kind of set up and you've got this one angle. You're kind of moving around the set to get the shot that you want. So it's like ton of fun. And then this one, we're going to be introducing a little bit more color, right? You can see we've got color background as opposed to the pure black background, and now we can really start to play with this beautiful color contrast. But just look at the lighting on the face here. The light source is in the shot, and you're able to get this beautiful lighting on the face, beautiful drop off. Look how it fades into these different colors here, and this is the colorscape that I'm kind of talking about here. So tons of fun to play with these, and this is going to be my first ever LED workshop. I think it's got a lot, and one of the parts of this workshop is that there's a ton of information in here, and it comes in the form of that 77-page PDF, right, of notes, right. which is this monster here, right? And like last week we were kind of talking about the differences between flash and LED. We went through this chapter. This week I kind of want to look at the color and light chapter and see if there's anything in here that you can kind of glean from this. I know last week you guys seemed to find this pretty useful, so this week hopefully we can find something of use in there as well. Let me just skip back here a second. I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions in here. Does Juju let you use haze? Yes, Richard. Yeah. It's designed for that. LED tubes are fun. They are fun. Yeah. I should pop this in chat as well. I do have a discount code for you guys in the stream as well, and I know for the workshop on the 25th, some of you watched the stream, you use that code. So if there's anybody left in the stream who couldn't make the first date and wanted to come on the following week on November 1st, you certainly can do. Just use the code JHP Live 50, okay, and that gets you 50 quid off the course price. Okay, so let's get into the PDF here, and let's just kind of have a look at where we're at with this. So let's come down here to the chapter that we are going to be looking at, which is going to be the color and light chapter. Okay. So why is this important? Like, why do we really need to know too much about this? Let me just adjust this because I think the PDF is cropping off at the bottom there because it's full screen and you guys are not full screen. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So why is this relevant to us? How much do we need to know about color? Surely it's just a case of if I like a color, use it, off we go, job done, right? There is some method to the madness if you interested in getting into the kind of the weeds with it. And for starters, there's actually two color wheels. There's a subtractive color wheel, which is this one on the left here, right? And we have an additive color wheel, which is this one on the right. So the subtractive color wheel is the one that you've probably encountered the most, right? It's the one that artists use and painters have been using for, centuries, right? And this is the one where a lot of the color theory comes from. And this is the primary colors. We got the red, the blue, and the yellow, right? So this is our primaries here. And then the additive color wheel is something that's come along in more recent years, and that deals with the screens, right? Your mobile phones or your laptop or whatever it is. This deals with the additive color. So what happens when we add colors together using light? Okay, in this example, right? And you can see here that the primary colors are kind of not where they should be. We have the red, the green, and the blue, right? So these are now our primary colors in the additive color wheel. Now, you don't need to remember this color wheel. I'm just really informing you that this is what happens, and this is how we can use different color wheels for different jobs. Because this subtractive one here is paints, right? Basic stuff, right? When we were kids at school or whatever, we'd be mixing the paints together, in school, and like I'm sure if you can cast your mind back that far, you know that when you mix in more and more different colors together, the darker and darker that kind of muddy brown purpley splodge of paint becomes, right? And that's exactly what's going on here. We have the primaries, you got your red, the blue, and your yellows, right? And then you mix them all together, you're kind of getting closer and closer to this dark point. And you can even see here, this kind of happened by accident, but you can kind of see that we're kind of, as these colors here are mixing, you're getting the greens and that sort of thing. So the more colors you mix together, the more paints you mix together, the darker you actually get your final image, your final color. So I went for too many pages. So the other color wheel is the additive color wheel, which is the one that you're using to watch the stream on. You're using an RGB screen or whatever it is you're using. This is how it's making up those different colors for you, so that you can actually see the different colors on your screen, and it's mixing these colors together to achieve that. So again here, this is just red, green, and blue light on a wall, right? And then when we bring those three lights together, this is the effect that we get. Now, some of you may have picked up on what's going on here, and before I mentioned about that image that Renee was using, which was my image I shot a while ago, but I mentioned to you about how the colors were very separate, right? The colors were very clean, separate, very bold and saturated, because those colors were separated on the body using technique and modifiers. And that's how you're able to achieve these saturated colors, because when we mix colors on the body, this is what's happening. Colors are getting closer and closer to the white point. So if you've ever played with colored gels in the past and you're like, cool, mixing all my colors together and like, oh yeah, throwing the red on there and I get the blue on there, like, yeah, cool. You know, it just gets washed out, right? The colors get desaturated, get very washed out. And what can happen if you're not careful, where those two colors meet together, you get this kind of weird banding effect, right? And that's what we don't want. So, you know, part of my training has always been about teaching you how to keep these colors separate on the body, which is difficult to do because the body is a small area. It's got plenty of curves and shapes and different angles and that sort of stuff. So how are you doing that? And typically I'm doing that with modifiers and distance and technique to make sure that those colors are separated, and then as a result, very rich and highly saturated, right? So the main point I want you to take away from this is the more colored lights you mix together, the closer you get to white light, okay? So just to recap, yeah, we've got the subtractive color wheel on the left and the additive color wheel on the right, which is, you know, lights and then paints on the left. Really, you don't need to know too much more than that, other than the fact that like these color wheels, I would recommend using the subtractive color wheel, so the painter's color wheel, for color theory, right? So, you know, colors that you want to look at and go, I want a complementary color here. You know, I'm using magenta, I want a complementary color to go with that, or purple, I want a complementary color to go to that. Use the subtractive color wheel, boom, and this will give you more harmony in your shot, as opposed to using the additive color wheel where you go, I want to use a complementary color over here, and then you end up with green. That's not what you want, right? It's not going to look good. So yeah, use the painter's wheel for color theory, and then the additive wheel when you're actually mixing your colored lights, right? So again, as photographers, especially those of us that use colored lights, we kind of need to use both of those wheels. So this is a cheat sheet, right? This is the cheat sheet that will kind of explain what certain colored lights do when they're mixed together. Some of them are surprising, some of them make sense, some of them are odd, but this is pretty much the global cheat sheet that you could happily use for most situations, right? And we can see here we've got the red and blue lights make magenta. We kind of know that, right, from here. Boom, red and blue, magenta, right? And then we get red and cyan, N, which is for neutralized. This is where it gets weird, right? So some of these colors will neutralize themselves. So, and I use the term neutralized rather than white or gray because it's not technically that, they just kind of cancel each other's color wavelengths out, right? So if you were to take a shot with colored light using red and cyan lighting, you've got to be very, very careful that those lights are very clearly defined and clearly separated, because if they ever fall on top of one another on the shot, like on the body or something, you're just going to get this ugly neutralized tone in the middle here. And remember, it's not going to be on a white wall, it's going to be on the skin, so you're going to get that weird skin tone coming through, and then red and cyan, that sort of thing. So some of these just really darken down certain colors, so you're going to have dominant colors that will kind of not really do too much, just make it darker. So we're using a primary and a secondary. Adding the primary on top of that is just going to make it darker, right? So this kind of that kind of makes sense. One of the weirdest ones is red and green. And I mentioned it to you a couple of times already this evening about mixing, RGB and, how we get warmer tones in the Kelvins is, to kind of mix red and green together. Because oddly enough, that's how you get yellow. That's how you get that warmer tone. Because remember, we're not using a yellow LED. So so getting yellow is from red and green. That is by far and away, to me, the oddest one. For me, that's the one that stands out as being the strangest reaction to me. Like the others I can kind of, that makes sense, but like the red and green making yellow is weird, right? Cyan and yellow neutral, magenta and yellow neutral, right? Again, so you're dealing with secondary colors when you're mixing secondary colors together, right? Magenta and yellow, secondary, neutralize each other. Yeah. Let's have a look. Yeah, again, yellow and blue, we kind of know that from the orange and blue we kind of get to. Nothing else crazy here. One thing that surprised me was that orange doesn't exist, right? One thing that surprised me out of all the combinations that I made, that I never once made orange, right? It's kind of this outside color that I had to introduce manually afterwards, and I've just added orange down here in the footnotes, as it were, because this is what happens when you mix orange with other colors. And the reason I'm using it here is because, you know, orange and teal, or orange and blue, which is what you see me using a lot, or, you know, or a lot of other people, when those two colors mix, that they will neutralize, which is not what you want, right? And that's where the color banding and the nasty colors that you see on people just kind of playing with gels, that's why that's why their color gel shots look like that. It's because they haven't kept those colors separated. Okay. If you want this sheet, it is on my website. I'll just grab it for you. You can find it. I think it's in here. Yeah, there you go. So there's a bunch of these quick tip sheets in there. Is one of the pages there. So if you wanted to grab it for yourself, you can do. Put that in there as well. So just just open that up, right click and grab that, and then you've got it. Someone was me, and I have to say it was super fun and amazing workshop. So yeah, so what Damien's saying there. So Damien was the guy that came over, and we did the workshop together couple of weeks ago, and he left me a couple of fantastic testimonials that I will put together in an email. And but yeah, I'm very pleased that you found it useful, mate. I know we got a lot done on the day, and thank you for chiming in there. Yeah. Melanie says, interestingly, red and green is used by makeup artists to correct skin tones, e.g. they put on green color over red blotchy skin to even it out. It's weird, right? I've seen, because you see people using green all the time to make skin tones. Yeah, so like if you ever watch painters work, you'll see them add like a ton of green. You're like, oh my god, what are you doing? And then it's weird. It just blends in. It doesn't make any. To me, I find it really odd. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Melanie. And thank you for adding that. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, it is crazy. It's something like an underlying tone or whatever it is. Yeah, it's weird that it works. But yeah. Okay, let's carry on here. So now we can kind of get into the reality of it, right? Like what does it really look like when we're really using these? It's all very well, you know, these renders, but you know, what does it really look like once we actually start putting this into practice here? So here we've got additive and secondary colors from additive primary colors. So red and blue. This is how we get the secondaries, right? We've already spoken about that, getting the magenta. I've already spoken about the red and green, getting the yellow here, right? And the green and blue giving us this cyan color. So these ones, cool, makes sense. Can you see the banding here? It's right. This just happens with the technology that we have, whether it be the chip or whatever it is that's going on. But you can see this banding that's happening here, right? It doesn't like it. The technology does not like it. I'm not adding this. I'm not doing some weird dodge and burn effect to get this ugly ass effect here. It just happens when we start mixing colored lights with the technology that we have and that sort of stuff, and you start to see the banding again here. It really doesn't like it. Yeah. You know, thankfully once they get mixed in properly, it's like, okay, we're good, but we don't like joining. You know, it's when you push two cells up against one another, and they're kind of like, no, I don't want to do it. And this is kind of what this feels like to me. It's weird, this banding effect that can happen, and this is bad lighting, right? This is where nasty lighting can start to shine through, and I'm sure you've seen gel shots online where this is happening, right? This is why it's happening. So here we go. Here's the nasty lighting the nasty gel lighting that I was talking about. But all we're using here is a red light, a green light, and a blue light. So these are the 3 lights you can see here, right? And they're used, these shots are just with each light on separately, and then I turn them all on, and then this is what we get, right? So if you're curious about the setup here, what this is a model standing in front of a whiteboard, and then probably 2 feet behind that whiteboard is another whiteboard, right? Which enables me to keep these colors separate. So I can shine the green from the left and it not really affect the board behind her. Yeah, so that's how I'm able to get these different colors happening in the same scene. So, and we can see it happening here, right? We can see the yellow, right? Because remember, the red is coming, we can see the shadow here, so the red is coming from over on the right hand side. It's making this board nice and red here. It's also hitting this board, but we can see the yellow where it's mixing with the green here, right? But notice this white light, because remember, there is no white light in this image. This area here is where all 3 of these lights are falling on top of one another. That's where they're neutralizing, and we're getting these nasty color banding effects and just these, you know, artifacts and that sort of stuff on the skin here, where the light is just like, this is not good, right? But yeah, so this is, and you can see this, the cyan down here, right, where the green and the blue are falling. You see the blue is falling here, the blue and the green is falling here. See how the red is shadowed by her, so we're able to get this cyan color here. So yeah, so this is the reality when we start mixing these nasty RGB values in the same area. I mean, it's kind of cool as like a classroom experiment, but like the results are just terrible on the skin, right? And I'm sure you've all seen gel lighting images where this happens, right? So not only are we getting this nasty banding, but we're also stacking colors on top of one another, which is increasing the exposure. And as we increase the exposure, we start to reach that saturation limit. You can see the red starts to get blocky and stuff here. That's why that is happening. Dog snoring, if you can hear that, I apologize. So here is the red and green, which is, again, wild to me, and one of my favorite interactions when it comes to colored light, if there is such a thing. But this is the one that I absolutely love the most, because it's such a bizarre effect to me. Because remember, this shot here is just red and green lights. All this yellow is purely coming from the fact that these red and green lights are falling on the same area, right? Remember that the red can't get over here. Yeah, the red is filling in this shadow that is being cast by the green. Yeah, this is and then when they're falling on the face here, we get this effect as well. I'll just show you another example of that here. So this is a great example of that, right? We're able to use these color combinations. Probably just get banned again. Use these color combinations to get these beautiful color mixes that are just absolutely gorgeous on the skin. You know, the skin looks absolutely beautiful, right? So yeah, you can certainly get some beautiful results if you're careful with the modifier that you use, the distance that you use, and you know, just watching where your shadows are falling and stuff here. You can see the shadow cast by one of these arms here, and then it's just being filled in by the red. Yeah. So again, the other one, red and the blue, giving us this beautiful, strong, kind of purpley color. But can you see how the digital chip in our cameras really struggles with this? This is kind of, you know, we're down at the far end of the spectrum here in like the ultraviolet, where there's kind of no variation in tone at all. It's just all blending together and giving us this very kind of like lack of depth, right? We have no idea whether this tone here is like 2 feet away or 50 feet away. Like it's just this very like no tonality or gradient in the color, and again, that's because we're at the far reaches of the gamut there, and this is why these colors can look like this when we do that. And again, like nasty kind of banding on the face here, and like here again, you kind of see where the color is breaking up as it can't work out what color it wants to be as it's, you know, moving around the body, as it were. But yeah, very, very, very strong magenta color when you're mixing the red and the blues. So coming back to the what did I say? The additive and subtractive color wheels and that sort of thing. So using the color theory from the painter's color wheel or the subtractive color wheel is where you want to be. And the most obvious color theories, or the ones that we are most familiar with, shall I say, are going to be the complementary colors, which are the colors that are opposite one another on the color wheel, right? So the reds and the blue, or the oranges and the blues and that sort of thing, the purples and the yellows, they're the ones that we kind of use the most. Then we got the triadic colors. So this is really looking at a triangle overlaid on the color wheel, and the most obvious ones being the primary and secondary, right? So you got the red, yellow, blue. Logos use that color theory all the time. Burger King, right? Red, yellow, blue. Pretty basic. But if you need to use three colors that need to be as contrasty to one another as possible, the only way to do it is to use the triadic color theory there. And now just colors are kind of the opposite to that, where they just kind of look at colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And this is very easy to do with like sunset scenes, right? The sun's gone down, maybe you've got some haze in the sky, everything's nice and rich and orange, so everything is kind of bathed in this orange light. This is where you would get this analogous color scene coming. In TV and movies, you'll see like this color scheme used for like nighttime scenes, right? Everything is like kind of bathed in this kind of deep blue tone, and you just have variations of blue. So this would be an analogous color scheme, that nighttime look or scene. So this is kind of where we get into the weeds a little bit of how we can start to use some of this knowledge to do things that are kind of cool, or be mindful of things not to do, right? So here I'm talking about mixing subtractive complementary colors. So remember, subtractive is the painter's color wheel, right? So and we just looked at it, the opposite. The complementary colors on there are going to be purple and yellow, red and green, and orange and blue. So if we use that painter's color wheel and we start to mix those colors with light, we get weird results. Typically here, they neutralize one another, right? Now, the red and the green is the only one that doesn't. The red and the green is the only one that gives us this kind of rich, beautiful yellow color, but the purple and yellow is going to neutralize. Orange and blue, as we know, neutralizes, okay? I tell you what's weird, like when I was kind of doing this, shooting these images, I was aware of the theory, right? And, kind of like, cool, I'll just kind of shoot this, to grab some shots. It is weird when you kind of shine these lights on the wall, like I'm taking these shots, and I just move them onto one another, and I just like, it is weird that they just neutralize, like in front of your eyes. Is just bizarre. Like you just have these rich colors and then they're gone, right? Which is obviously as the wavelengths of light kind of cancel each other out. Same with the orange and blue. It's bizarre. And I've spoken several times in the past about keeping these colors separate. There's several articles and that sort of thing I've done over the years where, let me see if I can bring it. Let's see, we got one of these articles. Yeah, here we go. So one of these articles here, yeah. So like where the orange and teals are not being kept separate in this image, right? And they overlap, and as they overlap, they neutralize. And it's where this neutralization that gives us this really washed out, ugly color. Which we can see. So this is what it looks like in reality. So definitely avoid those, right? So let's take this, theory one step further. Let's use that orange and blue, and let's use it in an actual photo. So again, here she's back in that same setup. She stood against the whiteboard. There's another whiteboard 2 feet further back, shining these two lights onto her. Isn't it crazy how neutral it really is? Because there's no white light in this shot. It's just an orange light on her and a blue light on her, right? Orange from the right, blue from the left. But look at how perfectly neutralized these two colors become. It's nuts, right? You can use that to your advantage for sure. Like you can get this kind of quirky effect here. Not sure how you would use it, but it is a powerful tool to be mindful of. Yeah, because it's not just fancy color theory that doesn't really pan out in reality, inverse square law, but this is like actually happens. Yeah. So yeah, just to kind of wrap this section up here, you know, this kind of final page here talking about like the complementary colors, the orange and blues. You know, I'm sure you guys have seen me use this a lot in my work in years past. We've got the triadic, right? So the triangle on the color wheel there. You got your primary red, blue, and yellow, right? So we got the, you know, red fill light, yellow in the background, blue as a key, you know, and then doing more of it here as well. Just using those three colors to, you know, create that harmony, if you like, right? And then now just colors. So here I do like this combo at the moment. Really nice, where you get this kind of pink, purple, blue, beautiful kind of wash of color. And again, LEDs and their saturation values enables you to get these washes of color, right? It doesn't need to be cranked to 100 the whole time, so you can do a ton of those. So here we've got triadic secondary, so the pink, teal, and the orange, something that I used for many years, that creates a very impactful shot. You know, pink on the background, orange fill, and then teal key, very powerful. And then we've got some examples of overlapping colors here, so red and green giving us this beautiful yellow color. We have the orange and blue. This is one of my very early gel shots, like nasty. So where she is covered in blue light, and I've tried to bring the orange lights in, but there's just no orange there because it's being neutralized, right? And then overlapping color again, like one of my very early gel shots from many moons ago, where I've just kind of gone, yeah, it'd be cool to get red, blue, and yellow just everywhere. Just, yeah. So you kind of get blue, you know, shadows in the eye sockets there, a little bit of red in the background of the hair, but you just get this kind of mess, right? Yeah. So just some examples there at the end. Yeah. And then obviously we go into quality of light section, but we will leave some of the meat on the bones for the workshop, right? So yeah, kind of a lot to go over there. I know I'm just kind of skimming over the surface of what color theory and how we can use colored light to our advantage there, because I'm not talking about specularity, I'm not talking about radiosity, I'm not talking about density or the modifiers or the distance and light drop off. I'm not talking about any of those things, and all of those things have an impact on your final colored image, which we're going to go over in the workshop. But if you can kind of get any semblance of control over that, you're able to sculpt and, you know, kind of paint your subjects with color, with like maximum saturation, and in a very small space as well. So something that kind of I've obviously been working on for many years, but yeah, definitely looking forward to getting stuck into the course and seeing how, you know, people respond to it, I suppose, because there's certainly a ton there. Yeah. Okay. So again, there's the course link there. I'll just pop that in the chat there, so don't get confused with the other links. And yeah, and again, if you wanted to save 50 quid on that, and you wanted to come along, JHP Live 50, I think it is. Yeah. Save yourself a few quid for watching the stream, and yeah, we're going to see a bunch of you on the 25th, which will be good, and then yeah, I'm sure we'll sell out the next one on November 1st, but yeah, should be good.